Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Lees and here are today's top stories. Self-isolation rules for school children could end in autumn. The former Education Recovery Commissioner has a damning verdict on the government's record to help pupils catch up with lost learning. And police are investigating a video showing England's chief medical officer being harassed by two men. The government is reviewing self-isolation rules in schools. It comes as COVID-related absence in state schools is at its highest rate since pupils returned in March. Here's NTD's Jane Well with more.
The government will decide whether to remove self-isolation rules for pupils in England if one person in their class tests positive for the CCP virus. Schools Minister Nick Gibb has told media that quarantining may be replaced with daily testing. Around 1 in 20 pupils were absent from state schools on June the 24th because of COVID-related reasons. The main reason for absence is self-isolation because of contact with a potential positive case of the virus inside the school. John Jolly, Chief Executive of charity Parent Kind, says he thinks parents will welcome any changes.
Yeah, I think parents have really struggled, and certainly over the last few weeks, as growing numbers of children are excluded from school and sent home. And I think we've seen that grow from about 40,000 to getting on for 250,000 over the last few weeks. So parents, I think, will welcome any changes that mean that more children are able to remain within the classroom in the next term. But I think actually it will be about waiting to see what those new plans are.
Parents might not feel happy with the amount of testing that could come in schools, even though there might not be the isolation rules.
Yeah, I mean it's a very difficult issue. I mean about 70% of parents have told us that they'd rather children were back at school, no testing, no social distancing, no face masks, no nothing, and 30% of parents telling us precisely the opposite. They want everything. So, I mean, I think we've got to come up with something that makes sure we keep COVID out of schools, and maybe look to do something different. So maybe testing bubbles every day rather than sending them home, and then just sending home those that are positive. We've got to try and do something different, and I know the government's been looking at a range of different options.
Schools Minister says the announcement on the changes will come before the lifting of lockdown. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
The government's approach to education recovery from the pandemic is feeble. That's according to Sir Kevin Collins, the former education catch-up czar. He says he is very worried about complacency. NTD's Joy Duguid has the story.
Sir Kevin Collins says the government's approach to education recovery has been a bit feeble, and a massive national effort is required to reduce the negative impact from the pandemic on children. Giving evidence to the Commons Education Committee on Tuesday, the former education catch-up czar for England confirmed the recovery package he put forward amounted to £15 billion. That's more than 10 times the figure agreed by the government. Collins resigned earlier this month after the government came forward with just £1.4 billion. He said it left him no choice but to quit, because the money was just not enough to deliver the kind of recovery the country needs.
And the growing education inequality could be the legacy of COVID if we're not very careful. We have to intentionally and directly intervene, support the children with the greatest need.
He warned that the most vulnerable children will suffer the most if the government fails to invest enough in education recovery.
I'm personally very, very clear that the biggest impact of COVID will definitely be on our most disadvantaged children.
Sir Kevin says that he is very worried about complacency and the belief that children's education would recover naturally.
Lost learning has structural consequences for these pupils, which could result in lost earnings as of much as 3.4% in their lifetime. This translates to a loss of between 26,500 and 52,300 in their earning potential, and that is a tragedy on an individual and societal basis. And
Sir Kevin said funds need to get into schools as soon as possible. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
Mobile phone bans and other measures to promote calm classrooms will be considered as part of a consultation on behaviour and discipline in schools. Education Secretary Gavin Williamson says he wants to make the school day mobile free, describing the devices as distracting and potentially damaging when misused. The idea is being considered as part of a 6-week consultation launched today, seeking the views of staff and parents on how to manage good behaviour. The call for evidence comes ahead of planned updates to government guidance on behaviour, discipline and exclusion from schools. And in other news, England's Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty was harassed again, prompting questions about safety of high-profile public servants. A security expert says smartphones and social media are fueling the growth of such incidents. NTD's Eddie Aiken has the details.
Metropolitan Police say they are investigating a video shared online showing England's Chief Medical Officer being harassed by 2 men. The video, lasting around 20 seconds, shows 2 grinning men grabbing Chris Whitty in a central London park. As Whitty attempts to walk away, they grab him again. With a line of police vans visible in the background, a voice says, "Leave the gentleman alone," before the clip ends. The widely shared video has sparked a heated reaction. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says, "Our hard-working public servants should not have to face this kind of intimidation on our streets, and we will not tolerate it." Vaccines Minister Nadeem Zahawi writes on Twitter, "This is disgusting, and these thugs must be found and charged." Labour MP Jess Phillips issued a reminder that public figures are human beings. This is not the first time Whitty is publicly harassed. Some figures are calling for police protection for key advisors during the pandemic. Security specialist Will Geddes tells NTD he's astonished that Whitty does not have a personal protection officer.
And this in itself raises some serious concerns about the absence of any kind of personal protection officer, which I would have thought in these somewhat inflammatory times should evidently be present.
Geddes says in his experience of protecting public figures, the advent of smartphones and social media has fueled the growth of such incidents.
We've seen a real amplification of those that are wanting to achieve, obviously, notoriety or fame or recognition or exposure by posting certain content on their social media. Now, inevitably, you see those that are upping the ante every single time to get even more controversial postings or video footage.
The Met Police say they are aware of the video. We're in contact with the victim and the circumstances continue to be investigated. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
The parents of teenage motorcyclist Harry Dunn, who died in a motorcycle accident in 2019, are set to fly to the United States today. They will give evidence under oath as part of a damages claim against their son's alleged killer. NTD's Joy Duguid has the details.
Harry Dunn's parents, Charlotte Charles and Tim Dunn, will fly to Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, ahead of the deposition process for the trial due at the end of the year. They will face lawyers acting on behalf of suspect Anne Sakoulas, who left the UK after diplomatic immunity was asserted on her behalf following the 19-year-old's death. Sakoulas, charged with causing the teenager's death by dangerous driving, will be required to give legal testimony by July 23rd as part of the civil claim. An extradition request was rejected by the US State Department in January last year. Mr. Dunn's mother described travelling to give evidence as punishing and exhausting, but added, "We would travel to the end of the earth and back if that is what it takes." The Dunn family's claim, brought against both Anne Sakoulas and her husband Jonathan, has unearthed that the pair's work in intelligence was a factor in their departure from the UK. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
Computing giant IBM is bringing artificial intelligence to the Wimbledon tennis courts. The technology will help spot up-and-coming competitors who may not be getting so much attention at this summer's tournament. NTD's El Rhodes brings us this story.
After being cancelled last year for the first time since World War II, Wimbledon is back. But this summer it won't just be fans and commentators looking for tennis stars in the making. Artificial intelligence will be too.
Most people come into Wimbledon once a year and they want to know who's playing well. They want to know who to pay attention to, and they want to know who to be interested in. And so we began discussing with IBM whether we could provide these fans with some help. The idea being to put together a watch list or a hot list.
The AI-powered player performance analysis will be presented on a power rankings leaderboard. It may help spot competitors flying under the radar at this summer's tournament.
It's one of the most amazing things about tennis, the way that it's set up, is that you could have the most famous player in the world against someone no one's ever heard of, and that unknown player actually win and pull off an upset. And those are the types of things that fans live for and deserve to know more about when they're thinking about who to pay attention to.
It's not the first time IBM's artificial intelligence has helped rank competitors. Earlier this year, the tech giant applied its Watson AI system to a professional e-sports league. Now, instead of video games, it'll examine tennis stars' performances and score data, as well as analysing pundits' online articles.
One of the major things is punditry from tennis writers. So articles that are published out to the internet, we're ingesting that content, analyzing it, and determining sentiment and analyzing keywords and things like that about the different articles.
This year's Wimbledon will look a little different due to the pandemic. Over 500,000 tennis fans attended the tournament in 2019. Capacity is reduced, although a full crowd is planned for the centre court finals. Earl Rhodes, NTD News.
Hong Kong will ban all UK passenger flights from July 1st. The government of the Special Administrative Region says this is to curb the spread of the Indian variant. NTD's Eddie Aiken has more.
Hong Kong says it will ban all passenger flights from UK starting this Thursday to curb the spread of the Indian variant. The Hong Kong government has classified the UK as extremely high risk because of the widespread variant. It says that people who have stayed in the UK for more than 2 hours will be unable to board passenger flights banned for the Special Administrative Region. It is the second time that the Hong Kong government has banned flights from the UK following a restriction imposed last December. Some parents in Hong Kong with children in Britain reacted with shock. They say they have paid large sums to comply with COVID-19 testing rules, but their children will now be stranded. Although flights from the UK are banned from July 1st, passengers can still book one-way flights from Hong Kong to London. Eddie Aiken, NTD News.
It's been a year since Beijing implemented a sweeping national security law in Hong Kong, aiming to stop pro-democracy protests. But pockets of activism still exist in the region today. David English brings us this report.
In a bustling shopping district in Hong Kong, Herbert Chow was walking a fine line. He's selling memories of the pro-democracy demonstrations. Chow runs a chain of children's clothing stores called Chicky Duck. But this particular shop, with its protest-themed t-shirts, stickers and pins, could cross the line into crime under the city's national security law. It was handed down by Beijing a year ago and could mean up to life in prison for what mainland China deems subversion, secessionism, terrorism and collusion with foreign forces. Chow's shop has already been raided by police, but he says he isn't budging.
I obey the law. I haven't violated the law. The red line of the national security law is always moving. If selling these products is considered inciting the public, if they dare to sink so low, I will fight to the end.
Chow says he still hopes for a democratic future, and he isn't alone. Independent journalist Jade Chung focuses her reporting on the city's most vulnerable. She says that over the past year, self-censorship has crept in, making interviewees and reporters more careful about what they say. But she also says she has no plans to stop.
I still hope to stay and make this city my ideal place. At least I can uphold values. I don't want the new practices to replace them.
Critics say the national security law is being used to chip away at freedoms and stifle dissent. Authorities have made certain songs and slogans illegal. The public broadcaster has removed protest-related archives. And democracy books have been pulled from the shelves of public libraries. Like the shop owner and the journalist, filmmaker Kiwi Chow has his eye to the future. working on a documentary of the protests, he says, to preserve the memory.
If I really get arrested, I will find comfort in the fact that I am being punished for carrying out justice, and so I am at peace. I've already passed the challenge of fear.
Hong Kong this week also marks the 24th anniversary of the handover from British to Chinese rule. Activist groups have applied for permission to hold a rally, but police have refused. David English, NTD News.
A former senior journalist at Hong Kong's now closed pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily was released from custody today, 2 days after he was arrested at the airport. Feng Wai Kong, 57, was reportedly released on cash bail of 200,000 Hong Kong dollars or £18,600. He had his travel documents confiscated and was ordered to report to police in late July. 500 police officers raided the newspaper nearly 2 weeks ago, arresting 5 executives. Still to come, we found out what it takes to graduate from the cooking school of one of the world's great culinary legends. That and more when we return. Thank you for watching our daily news show on YouTube. You can also watch our other programming on channel 190 on Sky TV or on Freeview via channel box on channel 271. In the meantime though, please give this video a like and hit subscribe to our channel. Have a good day.